If you guys can't hear or if it's the sound is weird, let me know. Is that too loud? Is that maybe that's a little loud? Is that good? Yeah? Yes. Sound wise? Okay, I think that's probably better. Your group is here, right? Yes. Yeah. I don't have quite this many, but I pre-translated the Geshe Gelsen will reference a quote from Shanti Deva, which I didn't translate. I picked two translations, and then when Geshe Rangrik speaks, he has a root text that I translated some of. He will not speak about some of the details. He'll translate. I translated what he's going to talk about, and so there's 10 copies.
I can take a picture and just send it to our WhatsApp so that everybody else can share.
Oh, actually, I can just. I can actually send you the PDF.
Oh, no worries.
Should have your. 네, consult PDF 당기는.
touché.
The text on the cushion, please. Text on the cushion.
Huh. Ella, you're not coming up on my WhatsApp, but I know we've WhatsApped. What is this?
Text you.
Yeah. I must have you under a different name. Andrew. Yeah, just
Yeah, no, that's good. I'm waiting for the internet to kick in.
there you go. Yeah, I know why you didn't come. I didn't put the periods. I guess it's.
This one.
This one.
Lasso, number to Samala, Dombo, Jashi Dele. Hello, how are you?
Hello, everybody. Welcome.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good afternoon.
Good evening. Samala, how are you? That in the Dombo de la Ane Kazan number two money was a game to be dirty. I should do. Dio Tola Ane Mega Kola. There's she had to Naz and the Sugudu. You might not answer me, John May in Sonzani, and should have Mega Kola, should have Shusha, your money. You might know, put your Reva Tarchin and also got you so going on to know about the teach you.
So yesterday there was a Q&A with the Geshes, and one of the things they asked was if they could talk a little bit about medicine and medicine in Buddhism. In Geshe-la, I haven't actually studied medicine specifically, but we will talk a little bit about the connection between medicine and Buddhism. Okay. Geshe-la asked me just to introduce Shide. So this place is called Shide, which in Tibetan means Shi and De essentially means peace and happiness, or well-being and happiness, something like that. So Sim Shide would be the full name, which means sort of peace of mind, which is the name of this center. So Geshe Gelsen and these other Geshes are all from a region in Kham known as Trango. So they're all from the same region in Kham I believe they were all born there and then came over to Drabung, left occupied Tibet and came to Drabung in India to study. Have studied and completed the 22-year Geshe program, which is the program that the Buddhist philosophy program essentially that they studied for over 2 decades. And they came here and have started this center primarily to fulfill His Holiness's mission of allowing Buddhism to help everybody, whether you're a Buddhist or not, allow to teach these Buddhist tools to help you have a happier, sort of more peaceful life. And they also have a mission of sort of helping promote Tibetan culture and language, and that is one of 2 of the sort of main goals of Shide. And so there's, I think about 20 geshes in the total thing, maybe 8 or 9 of them live here right now. And these guys the geshes are highly educated. They really have studied Buddhism for over 2 decades in incredibly intense, difficult programs. And so they're here trying to help us have happy minds.
투지체 인도라.
He said thank you.
야야. 당아서 정말로 주체쇼 가르에 라바이나 안아서 정말에 대원도바 둥을만도 나라 가르고요 대와고 나라 가르고메 둥을만고 인 소산 당아서 쇼키네 gonda 버드 칼레자와 정말에 돈다 대와기 체도 칼레자 되요래.
So, right, all of us here, what do we want? We want happiness and we don't want suffering. I, for example, I don't want happiness, or I want happiness, I don't want suffering. And so we, all day, what do? We try really hard to achieve happiness, and we try really hard to achieve happiness.
야. 아니 뭐 춘주 지바이나 거파 주스 딜라치니 장 지대도 가르치도 딜라치 거래서나 나라 대오고 버스니 지대오다.
Even the tiny little insects, right? What do? Those little insects that run around all the time. What are they doing? They think, I want happiness, I want happiness, I want happiness, I need happiness.
야. 다 되네 nga so shokini ni kinaya tsena ko nga za jidoa nga za de zu karal tende yore se baina so lui dan sem nila zu tende yore changa chen tensa la mombo yore imba yana zu tensa de karal lui dan sem nila tende yore.
So when we talk about this I, the I that we have all of the time, when we're sleeping, we have it first thing in the morning, really primarily, what is this I that we're talking about? This I, we can think about as both the body and the mind. And we're talking about roughly here, the I is the body and the mind. There's lots of ways of talking about the I, of course. But in this context, primarily what we're talking about as the I is the body and the mind.
Tangala dewago, dungo mebaina, nazola zu cargo yoresina, and lukin trotten, sembun trotten, the other nazola go yores.
So, I want happiness, and I do not want suffering. And so if we want happiness, really what we need is sort of welfare, health of our body and our mind.
Karchini Zevaina, Mazola Deva, Kandoja Deva della, Lutsula Timbi Devachi, Simsula Timbi Devachi. Yes, true. Deva true.
So we can say there's 2 types of happiness or well-being. The word Dewa kind of means both happiness, but it also has the sense of physical well-being. They also use it for health. So I'm translating it as happiness and well-being. So you have sort of 2 types of happiness and well-being. You have the happiness of the body and the happiness of the mind.
Ta imba ina tini lukin trotte dang, semgun trotte, mayongwala ko yongwala parchi chenyi, yongwala sota. Yongwala parchi chenyi de zu gar chaw yore sina. Mazo lukin dang, semgun asa zat chaw yore.
So if we don't have this wellness of body or wellness of mind, then what we say is that our body has become sick or our mind has become sick or ill. So when we talk about the wellness of the body, primarily what we're talking about is what we eat, right? How the health of the body is primarily determined by what we eat.
주어 가르에서나 칼라 만트로 바자와 양 하진 그 망와 양 하진 그 용와자와 나서봐 어딘데를 되니
Mantrapati.
민트로바
Two means
트로바
Okay.
칼라 칼라
Yeah,
트로바 아지로
So when we think about sort of harmful types of eating, we can say that we eat food that's not healthy for us. We can eat too much food, or we can eat not enough food.
야 다디 나니 장 먼저 칼라 마이슈바 양그 다다자와이나 소소고 포와게 다다 주마터바 딜레티니 먼저 나서 페미시 슈치모 마모티로레
Because of mango.
마이슈 칼라 주마터바
So one of the primary problems we have is that if we eat food that we cannot digest well. And so a lot of our illnesses of body come from eating food that the body is unable to digest.
야 먼저 보발라 페가리오레스 미너 탐치 제네 따는 탐치 유네스 미가 나사 먼저 가르를 되니 고레스 칼라사던 게 돈이 요레스 미가 나사 처음에 주 자막 돈이 요 사마사던 게 돈이 요레스 따 따도 좀페 나사 뭐뭐요가 가르를 되니 고레스 페 유탄 Mambo Yutani, Nasa the Young.
Oh, okay. So he said it's sort of a Tibetan saying or aphorism that said that the illness of horses come from running too much, and the illness from humans come from eating inappropriate food, essentially. And so primarily our illness, our physical illness, the illness of body comes from eating food that is not appropriate for us or we're unable to digest.
미자 민통 칼라메스 마자그메 마통고 메자다 마솔 뉴뉴레스 임바이나 고 라바다 자 똥텐데 지리 아라우루 gemche스 아라라 단 자사디가라 데니 아라 나나루둥아 자기두 세니 깨겨고로와 하고서 미자 민통 칼라메 마자그메 마 통고메 라야다 마솔 뉴뉴레스 강 라바 강 뭐뭐 동구요레스 동사디가라 디나르도 뇨다 요고와 나자 용소 아라 아차 하나세디 그 뭐고라고레스.
So as people, what do we normally do? We normally don't say no to food. We normally just no, I've had enough. What we normally say is, oh yeah, please, more food, more drink, whatever, and that then causes problems in our digestion, and then oh no, we feel terrible, we're unhappy.
야, 다 제가 류근나사도 주어들이지 라틴이가 저도 용기요거다. 다 샘근나사데 주어드가라 라틴이 용기요래 라바이나 차단 용송. 디나니장 몸바 마릭바 자텔레티니 아주 샘근나사데 주어텔레티니 용기요래.
So that was the illness of the body, right? That primarily comes from inappropriate food or eating too much, or these different ways, bad ways of eating food. So now we're going to talk about illnesses of the mind. And illnesses of the mind primarily come from the three poisons, which we can say are attachment, aversion, or anger, and ignorance. And of those three, really the primary one is this ignorance.
토몽게 가르레라바이나 셈고 남도당 즉 셈리아 컨트롤당 다 딘디가 삼로 만디와도 초나가서 나사 데 셈고 나사레 제니데 베뉴뉴 나사이 뭔진 제케데 베뉴뉴마도 요 말이 원이제나 셈고 남도당마다 셈고 나사 치차데.
Really? So we have a lot of these sort of these afflictive, discursive conceptual thoughts, these compulsive conceptual thoughts. We have things like anger in our mind. And really should see these as illnesses of the mind, even though that's often not seen that way. Very few people see it that way. Really, we should see these kinds of like anger and these poisons as illnesses of the mind.
야, 다 나초라야 디디가 류기 나사단 셈고 나사도 고고 메바이나 다 주고 가르쳐 고레스나 류가 나사 강 종위 겐 유도 메바서 고레스 류기 나사.
네.
바가나 셈고 나사대양 주톱 지하도 주 셈고 나사 기긴 간이 지냈더니 중국이오메 예시바지니 데메보서도 지내래.
So when we think about both the diseases of the body and diseases of the mind. If we obviously we don't want these and we want to avoid them or get rid of them, right? What we have to do is think about what is the cause of the diseases, what are the causes and conditions of that are creating the diseases of the mind, and then knowing that we're able to not get sick.
Tene yin sonsan ne zuwu de lugi na tsago yi yin zuwu de karla tene yung yore la bayina chadang monsum karsa bari long chi long dang chi ba dang beken sum tene zuwu chung yore
The luginata.
lugi na tsago.
So the main cause of getting of illnesses of the body are the imbalances of the what do we call it? The wind, the bile, and the phlegm, the three humors in the Tibetan medical system is the primary cause of the physical illnesses.
Yeah. That dindigo gandichini yung yore sinde dine long chi beken sum de perewa yang yana seba yana kuso chuba chu pansin chu teba.
The chanyum meba.
Oh, chanyum meba. Oh, dindile dini yung yore.
So to talk about that a little further, the three humors there, what kind of causes them to create illness when you have too much, too little, or they're out of balance? They conflict essentially in our body in some way.
Yeah. That dindigo chamanyum bada tusun chuba da dindi yung ya dia zu so nanga samlo le dindi yung yo so de jeza de long chi beken sum ko zawa ko tusun chudo ya da dindi de zu zawa de kan re samlo da da to ni don da chadang mo sum ya sawi jude asam thati de sawi jude chadang mo sum de to re.
So, and when we think about what causes these three humors, the wind, the bile, and the phlegm to become unbalanced, or to have too much or too little, or to conflict, really it's our mind becomes disturbed. And what disturbs our mind? It's these three poisons, the poisons of anger or aversion, attachment, craving, and ignorance, of which ignorance is really the primary one.
제가 딘디인 송사는 땅아주 딘디가 나사도 주톱 제발이야 매버서도 제발이야 다 탈론가를 된 거래 스티가는 다 주고 제다 저럼당 다 주톱 진수.
So if we want to get rid of our illnesses, there's really three methods that we can follow. We can follow proper eating correct food, or eating food, but correct food. We can talk about our actions, like how do we behave, and we can talk about medicine, like ways to correct these imbalances.
Yeah, that's it. He chased the tambo nasa to Mushima, so the Mapo Molia, he chased the Karchagore, Sitikala, Mongo chair, Nasa Mongo chair, Ekichimu Chadigoso, Zama Zatande, so substitute Mungo.
Mungo kika.
Oh, Mari Odete, Nasa Mayu Mola and Gotochi.
Okay. And so what is when we talk about how to prevent illnesses, and we talk about one of the most important things is food, is what we eat, and we can really think about food as being a really important preventative, a way to not develop illnesses if we eat properly.
Yeah. That's Amadian, Carre, Sosola, Count Tropatesa. Count Mantropa, the Mazawa, didn't have Chichibahina, so the
So we have to eat what is appropriate or healthy for our body, and try to not eat what is not healthy or appropriate for our body.
Yeah. That's why I calculated it. When the Migo, Sosola Gendato, the Kalatevina, General Sazo cheese, Kalata mi Shangares. Joko Cherangares,
Kalati Mishingaru together. Kalati Mishingaru.
Kala Kara Mishana Sosola and the Gendatoni, Kalateo, Kalateva in the Cheran Sasso cheese, Kala the Mishangares, in a Joko Cherangares.
So, for example, there's sort of another saying here that if you go out to eat and someone else is paying for the meal, and there's a saying, right, which is careful, that the food is someone else's paying for, but the stomach is yours.
Yeah. That ending also Jolam, Nibati, Jolam Delaya, Luigi Jolam, Nagi Jolam, and Iki Jolam,
So when we talk about behavior or actions, we can divide that into three. We can talk about the behaviors of the body, the behaviors of the speech, and the behaviors, actions of the mind.
Yeah. That Tamboda Luigi Jolam de Karchego Gores. So Jawa in a young, gone to Jawa, Yabu Chola, Libo, Gosho de Mangata, 아니 자와 득자가 쳐려야 수수 리포트 페이지 용어 당고
So in terms of the body, what we're trying to do is, as much as possible, do things that are good or helpful and avoid doing things that are bad or negative physically with our body.
아나시 나기 교람스 어저 가자이나 수수 시 고야 대시 시 먹어야 마시 지도 제 고야 마시 아저 빠빠빠빠빠 먹고 배나 다다가 저 나기 준 참아 직접 나게 또 라면도 시에 되는 가리 모래에서나 수수가 셈나마 남도 빼 라면도 제기요 남도 라면도 제거리 우기야 몸보지 초라도 요래 눈몸보 토로도 나도 지치다 싸도 나는 눈몸보 토로도 성산이 텔레테니 수술라 나사 빼식지 못 제기요 가자시 눈도 마서도 칼라서 모자이나 몸보도 어저 돈미지니 가자라면도 시에 되나 아무도
So when we talk about the actions of speech, the most important thing is you say what needs to be said and you don't say what doesn't need to be said. So, sorry. So we can talk about like in terms of the non-virtuous actions. There's this like divisive speech, idle speech, harsh speech, and gossip and things like this. So all of these things, you don't want to do. And the reason one reason you don't want to do this is that you're constantly losing breath. You're losing breath, and it's like a car where you're losing oil, you're losing gas, and then you just run out of gas.
Yeah. 가자만 보시나 다 제야도 저랑서 하고 돼. 가자만 보시나 소소 랑신 그 루스니까 탕 제야도 소소 그 초로가 돈이
가자만 그래 그래.
탕 제야.
탕 제야.
깔리카.
예. 그 공소들이 가자만 보시나 탕 제야.
맞아. 소소 그 가자만 보시나 루단 셈니까 깔리카야 돼. 저랑서 디니 그 초로 좀 용어해. 지와이. 호신.
So if you talk a whole lot, do you get tired?
저기도 디나니 저 까자 듣자 밀어 카다야 직접고 밀어 이제 시대와 있나 동부 그런 듣자 그 비샤자 버려 싸와 그런 듣자지 내니 가가 듣자라고 버려 제상 셈리야 남도도 진짜 몸부 기와 뒤쪽그 소소 리컴그 종아도 투야라 노
So the reason for this is if you're speaking a lot and you're speaking in these ways that are inappropriate, you generate these negative motivations. This sort of you're speaking divisively. You're doing these things that are bad, and that creates more and more of these afflictive discursive thoughts that wears you out.
뭐야? 다 이기 교람 주도가 저 삼로 당당들이 다 삼로 당당들 소소 고라 먹고라 참마 셈라 된 되어이나 셈라 까닌도 아니 소소 로종 그 초당 양대지 잠바다 니지가 초래 지정 삼로 당당 소소 루이당 셈니가 홀로 자기도 내가 저 하고도 여봐
So for example, the mind, if we have lots of these discursive thoughts, we get really tired, our mind gets tired, we can't think. But if we have love and compassion, if we have these positive thoughts, then our mind is relaxed and we're able to just sort of be peaceful.
페나마조 쇼키야 라네 본다마마니 버릴이야 소소 셈리야 컨트롤도다 디니가 삼로 멤버 남토도 지금 그 뉴뉴 차와디죠 본다마니카 아마 디리다 삐끼오죠 홀로 진 뉴단 셈니가 홀로이마 다 디링 때 재미 냠도 자리쇼 컨트롤자 디리진 본다마니 때 빼토기도 참아 난 디리다 빼깔이 가서 용도 하면서 냠유도
So in the morning, if we're aware of our motivation, we reduce our afflictive discursive thoughts. If we reduce our anger, and we do this a lot, then throughout the day, at night when we reach the evening, then we're very happy, we're very relaxed because we haven't had all of these difficult negative emotions in our mind. However, the opposite, if we wake up in the morning and we have lots of anger, we have lots of negative discursive thoughts, by the time we get to the evening, we're like, oh, I'm so tired, I'm so exhausted, what a difficult day.
단 dordi shabayina harrezina raro susu gu lu na yi somde raro susu gu dako yatabaji chego yore.
So to what is the chief point here is your own body, speech, and mind you have to take care of it. You have to really be careful about what you do.
Yeah. That didn't all in the church Chologa sometime at the garden. When I was on Gonasa, Tokonasa, Dini Nawaina, Megana do the gun. I remember a Keran, remember Kalaya, one Yembo was. That Indian Bayana, that Dilly do Nasa do not pay Rajan Tamala Nova. I give a Mongola or Nova Tepiniga. A simple Nasa, Yumoseade, Mebazoya, Tablo Donia down. They member of men deliver a member of the deliver, the color that diligent go, yes. Come so, Tamboda, Tamboda la pena to do Nasa, Gonaza, Tokonaza, Megana, Rodigana, member of Kalayago, Niego, yes. Member of Kira Mendes, member of Kalayago, Manana, Kira Luginasa, the Dr. Kumar, yes.
Okay. So now we're talking about this quote from Shanti Deva, which I handed out to some of you. And so if you go to the doctor and you're sick, right, you have a physical illness and you go to the doctor and you want the doctor to help you and the doctor gives you medicine, if you don't actually take the medicine, you will not get better.
Yeah. That Imbayina, Docha la so pita, Dinala Natsa, Nigaja the Monsigremato, Niga Tata Sevo Mare, Odin Susan. Docha sopi same ganasa to members of the tablet to Nichiona. The color that never the new godago. Can Yingores. Karalamnaso, or Kalanigori. Lasso, and so Jagoresco.
The Dinangchin.
On what pay. You buy the same ganasa.
So in the second here is the mind, right? The Shanti Deva has instructions for how to heal your mind, but if you don't actually follow the instructions, if you just leave the instructions as words only, you won't actually heal your mind.
Yeah, that the order ona tindu same ganasa de soso vigila dinani chik won the job in a control of chik michigan semlia won the job in a Zambudiga meet some of the Diki Troll to Koreas. The new college Shugures, Nishugures, Conrad of Chick. No, Conrad of Chickwa, and you also Zambudiga meet some of the Diki Troll members of Tourias. Diki.
Oh, okay. So one angry person can basically make everyone in the world unhappy.
Ona Dinriga Nasa Dijadelaya is a member Kawani Yuri. Men Kawani Yuri, General Cheloni, and the Tunga Chimbo, the Menga Chimbo, Dinilaya, Arata Sadona, Nigamari, Ragi Mari.
So if anger is this terrible, right, where is the medicine? Where is the way to fix this anger, right? Is there if you go to this big store, if you go to the hospital, will you find the medicine that will fix this problem? You will not.
Yeah. Ona dela pembiga pedo cheniga lamto cheniga member down didiga semga nasa dela pembi me meware bezna me yores men the sweet dong yores na ani tamchin chemba pengo yes.
So is there something to help this mental illness? Is there a way to fix this mental illness? If we ask that question, yes, there is. So what is the way? Who taught the way? The Buddha taught the way.
Yeah. Tanchin Kimbaza, Sanji Chundan is a digger, Semga Nasa, Mebo Zotan, the Tablam to Sama and Azola Sao, Dongyoris. And it digger keep doing to Sama Mebo Zotan, the Sauchin, Mazola Lojon Tiguri. Imbayana Yangato, did a Tarati, she did a sinity in Manibayana, da Mishiba and Mishiba do shures. And they pay Marathon, pay you, do shoot the Chadu.
So, the Buddha, we can say that the Buddha, the Tamche Kimba, the omniscient, the sort of all-knowing Buddha taught us the way that we can remove all of these afflictions, all of these poisons. We can taught us the way to have happiness. But if we don't listen to this, then then that's not going to help us. And how that's really, if we have this method and we don't listen and we don't apply it, then it's really not helpful.
Remote number to Manchewa, member is do. The member is the Galia. Member, don't the carriers, have some down. Ninjas at the member Yobayana. Have some. Ninjas at the Yobayana. Oh, Ninja Yobayana. Then they will Chimbo.
So in this group, many of you are doctors, and so one of the things he wants to just mention is that really two of the things that he thinks that are really that are really a way to help people. There's two things: there's compassion, and there's haksam, which is we can translate as this sort of special attitude, but really it's this desire. It's this really strong desire to help other people.
Yeah. 그래서 단 노르디 샤바이나 넘어서 가라섬로 당고 그래지디 배나죠. 맹康총康마찬가지다. 멤버 총바 마찬가지다. 맨도 총제 마찬가지. 삼로징이 버당고 그래서 지등의 전에 맹강 주인이 소소 델라테니 소소 자야다 고야다 소소라 빈줄 용탁 제고. 이바이나 베리가 맹강도 총康나시. 멤버 총바 매제 총제 차소나 네발의 대성도 팬도 요구 매일 송산이 디니 마용마지 당보니 멤버 쪽이 바이나 삼로당 모여레스
나 그래도 민강 정강도 카리가
맹강한테 총강 마찬가지
맞아요.
멤버들 총바 마찬가지 돈다 전에 팬도고 돈이 멤버 지고 와 잔다가 나살라 팬도 용이 제때 수 제와 그니 노마 나총 벤조기 제도 벤조기 제도 매사마도지
민정이 맞아요. 그래. 이제와 메나도 리멘들이.
제와 맨날 듣고 말이야. 제와 심하지. 딩고라 가르치는 맹강의 총강 마찬가지.
민강 맞아봐.
나도 총강 나 맹강이
리카카카를.
녹화 가가지. 제가 맹강의 총강 난시 마찬가지. 제가
네네.
계속
네네.
멤버도 총강 마찬가지.
네네.
멤버 총재 마찬가지. 이걸 상담 그래서 이것도.
So it's very important to really understand that these hospitals, they're in doctors. We don't want to conflate. We don't want to think, oh, the hospitals, the healers are just salesmen, and that hospitals are just stores, right? If we think like that, that it's not helpful.
그렇잖아. 네 조시도 다가랑 이 아니 지금 아주 지와 되는 거 나눠야 안 나눠줘. 어디 지나야 아주 지금 얘기할 시간으로 들려가이나? 이런 거 써주시죠.
So thank you, and if you have any questions, we can do a Q&A. We'll do a Q&A after get you wrong with this.
Last thing, that's you catch in a row. And but so much, I'm just the knee touch so that you somewhere. Get on it, because can you judge the mango shall jetuna yapondu in the song. Ina yatanga so non chew non shena tomatel ta menzeti nasa corle nasa zeata su tandanga sundama yon chocolate menzeti at zuku nasa corte shendo. Ti chani sheyona ta pachina chew non the sapochi meban rochire.
So today our topic here is medicine, and we think if we talk about medicine, primarily when we talk about medicine, we think about diseases of the body. And in Buddhism, is there really a lot of discussion about diseases of the body directly? Maybe not. So we can say that, as Geshe Gyaltsen also said, that within Buddhism, of course, we talk about the three humors, the wind, the bile, and the flu, and there is discussion about that. But if you think about, if this disease arises, we do this. If this problem arises, we do this in this very specific way, then that we do not have that in the Buddhist text. But we do think about the diseases of the mind and illnesses of the mind, and of course the Buddha taught a lot of ways to heal the mind. The Buddhism has a lot of information about diseases of the mind and how to help them. So when we think about the illnesses of the mind, of course, we can think about what we talk about as self-grasping or this afflicted conception of self. We can also talk about the three poisons, the desire, craving, attachment, the hatred, aversion, and also the ignorance. And the Buddha definitely taught about these.
송당아서 남자 견데들 딜러 님볼 타기파치 딜러 님보즈나 딜 카프텐 로버들 잠바 고메 이제 고메야 아니 조파 고마라 소파테 초트 이마타파 제토나 디 데소마요 펜코치 보요레
And so when we can talk about the antidotes or the ways to address these problems, and meditating on love, meditating on compassion, meditating on patience. If you can do these kinds of meditations every day, it's incredibly beneficial.
뭐뭐뭐치 그 삼고레 잠바타 니제다 조팔라 소바곰바트 파쇼 파체티인 삼니 파쇼라 펜도체와 케산체와 라크요레 삼고레타 콘산초고 카티나 손데레 삼바 젠도레 단르게란도레 잠바타 세와타 니제라 소바고메 소소 셈카케 포차타 미 소소르 던족도와 tso kepsan chewata soso to dogre mi paso le kepsan pendichia to akapore pasho koro to so ya poma gomna.
So if we meditate on love and compassion and patience in these things, of course it does help others. His Holiness has talked about this, right? That it does help others. But really what you're doing is you're helping yourself. If you meditate on these things every day, you're really helping your own mind to heal. And so really the primary benefit from meditating on these things, even though it does help others, is for yourself.
Ani no partikyoso memba yin sonza taki ke so na jeje ne ba ta so le sem so che bo ta ke chimbo ndo ne ba sem kam ka se lo lo chao bai na sa ta ke na jen go ya bi la o chao to ayung yo sari.
And so if one is ill, as much as possible, the mind, if one is ill, if one is able to keep one's mind peaceful and relaxed, it is a real great benefit to healing your body and to yourself.
Ani ngaro nyamnyo de jikna lo mom ta lo ta chukachi ne ja shi chembo china ni menga na tendin ro ya menga na ro ka sa parcheta shinjo agya cha gyan ra bo chi tendi chi re so sa kap ti ngaro ta na gyan chu na chu ta te wo na chu na la karo so re zen ni thom shiwa ta che pares shivi ti so lan de ni ji ki shegre de ni pa yo mar so lo chembo cham shiwa ta lo chu chi shiwa ni pa yo mares ta shivi ken de andra mandra na ka chobje chi yore zin kandi sheoti a so so ngol teleti a jengo ata sergo a china ta jamre re sasam no ai chomen yore sasam cha sempa lo che sa le re samba samlo tili chi tamba yin.
So I can also talk about myself as an example that I have been ill for many years, and at one point I thought for sure I was going to die. But then I think about Buddhism, and I meditated on this and do the basic meditations where we don't know when, no one knows when they're going to die. No one knows the causes that they're going to die. There's many causes possible for death, and so there's really nothing to be done about this. And so when I meditated on this and I worked with my mind in this way, then even though I was ill, I was able to have a very relaxed, peaceful mind.
Ni ni patal nga so achu na la kar sa mo za nga so ji tin ki ko ra za ale yang ni ta pa ko ra jam ni chi pa chi kyang ji chi ni ro de ya ten ji so yo re la kap te nga ro le nyam nyam te le sa nga te ti lo ji chi ja ni re sha ya sa lo chi ta in dan lo ji chi je ni na nga ro ma te kar ki yo sa ni ma ta pa chi pa ndo chi ri ya la sa ni ma gonda ma ni ya sa ni ya le ka chi pa ndo chi ko ra ja ta yang jo nga ma shin ni lo ji chi de na yang jo nga ten ti chi ni ko ra ja ni yang jo kasi nga ma shi wa ni yang jo lo ji chi se yo pa ni yang jo nge ma na ji ko ra ja ni ro re ni te ba chi nga ji ya ji chi mun sa sa so ta shi ya da ma shi la ji ka ba mun sa ni ta so sem ka ma lo ji chi de la o ten di sa lo ta ma ko so
Anh sao mà cái kỹ thì khán giả thì lo ship trước cái ring thì ni mà tác par chia cái
shi te ma nga ron so chi tant chi pa chi kyang chi
đấy
chi pa chi kyang chi ni ta pa chi kyang chi ni yo yo ta mo ba le lo mo bo chi de na te no ji ko ra ja ni de re ma to je mi si na chi a shi ya ta ma sha ni shi la ka bar yo re sa san lo chi.
So I have lived for 42 years, but every day through doing this practice, right? If I live or I die, it doesn't matter so much. I have the same experience every day over and over again. And maybe I will die, maybe I won't die. It doesn't make that much of a difference. That every day that, right, that I have the same experience of peace.
So tendri saulo taon ni na ta shikchen bo chana ya zupol kanin dum sem kan chen lo do chi chi ni pa ma mi de on di da da na ro ta la mas ne o ta so ne pa sem ka ya pon de na sa la kan do chen bo ni ni kan la.
So even though, you know, even if you are sick and you have a very difficult illness, if you have a peaceful mind, you can be happy throughout this illness, and you can still retain a peaceful mind even though your body is very sick.
What's also tendri chi ni ne pa ta so sem kam lo che go at ke chen bo re ta no par te on na so sem chu bi on at na to ra man ra por ni song ra man ra ta ni sem chu yong song sa de lo mu si go lo ko yi ning de ti ka te ta lo long tan da un jong bon bi gom ji she o de su tong ti ni te ji mo to che yi.
So when we talk about how important it is that we keep our mind healthy and happy and relaxed, right? Well, one of the causes of this not happening is because we generate these afflictive discursive thoughts, these sort of compulsive discursive thoughts. I mean, these disturb our mind. So the one of the best ways, a very good way to help reduce these afflictive discursive thoughts is through breathing meditation or sort of mindfulness of breath.
That's okay. Ko yi ning go tan da gom ba ta la Rambanda or Trixian, the chicken on the Tamanita, Maguachi, Tombo, Jetachimotrochi, Tamaniti on the Tentombo, Shisha, put the potential.
So now we're going to look at this commentary by Vasubandhu that hand out some of this is in, and there's actually 6 different practices listed in this, but we're really only going to talk about the first 4 of the.
Last what any, apart the boom Yavika, so the poor in the town Avia. Kitchen channel up and the leisure, the put so ya chambo de, Nimut the Sotia Mata, Tanjiga, Zubo de Tanchi, Sherry Yori. No, Niperta the Chego Resina, go Yosamari, Carazina, Niku Devi Kazu, Gami, Mombochi, Nikon and Jugo. On that Gonja Casa Soso, the poor country, the Pondo, counter the port of the Pochi on Pom, the Podo Munakali, and Comjato, the Zupo de Pochi, the Kitchen Borisha, Sosondo.
So when we start meditating, the first thing we think about really is having this posture where we have our back straight and our hands here, and we have our hands in this posture like this. But we can also just ask, right, is this absolutely necessary that we sit here like this? And it's not, because some people actually do a lot of meditating while they're sleeping. And so it's not totally necessary. If your body, if you're sick or you're unable to sit in this way, you can still meditate. It's okay. You need to do what is healthy or available for your body.
So tap the opportunity. That and that gum yapton, the little opportunity, Tombo, the John Bazia, the Changa, and so Nagon on Monday, some Jin who draw Changa, Ya Chapat. Anthony Guanichi, some Jenny Yang, Maris and Mandrola, Apason, Chuni, some Jena, Chupat, Daniel Guanichi, some the Liam Mombos in Indros on the Parshis and Yandroy, and you knew Chini, Zinama, Yokta Chandra, and so that's Chini Chandra, which is Guanita, and the Jenny Root. Not a joke what the Chamarta, who the Joguris and the root of the Safety Changa Jami did at the Tentombo John as the other. What's the song?
So the first one that we're talking about, counting, is the first of the 6. The 4 that we'll talk about is an easy one where you can think about the breath coming and going through the nose, and you can count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You count up to 10, and you don't want to count too many. If you count too many, then you can cause problems with your concentration. If you count less than 10, if you do 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or something like that, then you can get bored. So really, the 10 is the number that you want to count up to 10. Count up to 10 as you're doing these breaths.
Also, take one touch Chigresha, Ilapo Chigresha, Nibasa Karazeti, Jisendo Aziata, Tamato, Utantan Salotan, Root, Novioni, Ulponanima, Dronima. Shakas upon the Mata, Cheshi, sound in the Mando Sons and Pendrendo was at the Penima, Combani Salpa, Ushi Chemodoina, Doba Councils, Uchuina, 토강 좀 송 삼바 판조아 드리지 사고다 양슬레 온데는즈코나니 아규니다 나고니 파파니 양드니 파 온난도 토강다 리난도 바콘 근데 르 판조 사선이 근데 포라자니 양조 삼로테 장르자니 리잠바 살로마타니 공자니 파데레샤.
So the second one we're going to talk about is following, and what following is that as you're doing the breathing, you imagine you feel the air coming in through your nose, and you go all the way down through your body, down through your legs, and down to your feet, and then it actually goes out your feet and spreads out around you into the ground. And at most you would spread out about an arm's length, and at least it's about a handspan. It's technically that size, but it doesn't have to be exact. And then you imagine your breath coming back in, coming back all the way back up through your body and back out your nose, and it does the same thing up here where it spreads out up here and then comes back in, and you do this cycle.
Also, tani sambat karrezena jokpaziatrishan jokpaziati long de zupuna leon de zupuna long lekachi and ochirisha zupuna long ngacho zupol pento kores chochini asogu yores na chochini lochi yores or na chochini ngacho zupol tamo cha tanjil penko chochini ya zupol tropa tanjil pento kores and zupuna long pento cheston do the lochi tondo tri le saulatani de achirisha.
And so the next one we call placement. It would be placement, I think, in Tibetan or in English, or application. And here you take a deep breath and you imagine that the breath is filling your body, but then you really analyze, right? Is the breath, you think about, is the breath hurting my body? Is the breath helping all of the different parts of my body? Is the breath making my body warm, or different parts of my body warm, different parts of my body cold?
That's what somebody treves about the near stop as it long coron pa long the carriers who long the carriers and parting or the under ochirisha. He parts on a co salter chilton meter long the theater zilter chatter road the recha that theater city. Durkia social and reach long there and reach younger and tell Saulotaya teller. Near stop as you long more like Pachindu. Amata Teresha, Saulotani Teatrisha, Gomjaps.
So the fourth one we would call examination of the breath. And so when we do this, really what we're doing is we're thinking, what is this wind, or what is this breath that we're actually inhaling, and what is the sort of the essence or the nature of it? And when we think about that, we can think about it as being these particles of earth, particles of water, particles of air, fire, and also particles of form, smell, taste, and tangible objects. So we're examining that aspect of breath.
What did you do in Saulotana? Gomjapta number Mandra, Jetanic song, that's what the Pushurishan, Matsu Chet of Sona, Chishimishi, Gomjap to Nagyap Shidra, that the Kotebundo, in La Pushishan.
And so this is a method of meditating on the breath that is very, very easy, very convenient, and very helpful.
So that the Bobo Yingate, so Nam Toma Moshi, Semenda, Mandrachena, they go on the shoe penguins in the Sonsha.
And so Vasubandhu, the author of this text that he's speaking from, said that this kind of meditation is very good for decreasing the amount of these afflictive discursive thoughts, these compulsive discursive thoughts that we have.
I've also member in Sonsa Neba, so you same trick and Chicani Chicken, and the Janga Jani Desho, the same painters in the process of the long never the Zokati, same conclusion.
So if you have someone who's ill, you have a patient or someone who's ill, if they are able to do this practice, even though their body is ill, if they were to do this practice, this will reduce these afflictive discursive thoughts, and that will help them relax their mind, which will then also help their body.
So
thank you. Okay.
Do so, John, then the soya sheet. So, Tata, Reson, sheet.
Did you guys understand the four? Did we get the four?
Namji also Tramba Niersha, Gumbi Kalia, Tambo, Lu Tramba Niersha. That Lu Tramba Niersha. Chitang Cheni Tara Mombo Gumia Yoridi, in a Lila Shote, Mazonamini, the Utangio Sonza, Urang, la sanodan da genga sombadan shin ga toni tamba nyesha gomiade li la shu chi ya chaw yore la de pento chi shu chi
Loop trumping now together.
la
Loop trumping.
lu tamba nyesha
Loop trumping next together.
lu tamba nyesha chi tamba nyesha shiwa tamba nyesha odin on lu tamba nyesha tambo sungo wa lu tamba nyesha ka dani jang tambo unjong wonde so so etap deo chi la re pento chi mi chi
So the first among these four that we talked about is this counting of the breath, and this is really a helpful, really a useful, easy way to meditate on the breath.
대시 다다래서 다다 대시들 레나가서 까마 가시지나 냠도 고메이다 대시들 거서 야고지 신요나 아주 정말 냠도 까마 가시지나
So everybody understand.
고미야
So does everybody understand? If so, we're going to go ahead and just do a few minutes of meditation.
I didn't understand if these four are supposed to be done like in one session, or if it's like, okay, you practice counting for like a couple of weeks or months or whatever
That's a
it
good
is,
question.
and then like you go in that way through the stages. And I also don't understand if it's instructions for shamatha or if it's like a different kind of meditation.
Okay. Kongichiwa de tiwani de kongichiwa tangbo de ngati de tunjikla de shitsama de rimbato gyores or de dunchak jikla tangbo chegyore de dunchak shimba de niba chegyore de kandida gyores.
대 중국 나는 되게 사까 만두 다 소소 담보 식을 양나 아메야.
기타가나 가르레시 말나
대 담보 운정 식을 양니. 근데 그 전에 모니터나 저시에다 템보로 쳐서나요. 이제 볼로나 마도 대식대 텐치를 보면 식대 텐치를 보면 되지나 중로나.
So
저거는 사고지 못 같아.
So in the text it doesn't specify, right, if there's a specific way to do this in that context. What Geshe-la said that is really just to do it, and that if you feel comfortable with it, if you feel stable with it, like if it's created some benefit, then you move on to the next one.
야 나도 말서 냠냠고 돈이 가리고 요래서 디가나 그러나 자기 나지 지루 장가 견니 근데 진이야마 근데 저도 대체 로체 템보 차송바이나 야 템보래 제제 심 뇽난다 야 심 대제 지 어디니 차송바이나 양 대제 자기 나지 지니 양 어젠다라 파카포니다 그래서 대제 뇽난도 양들이 대치 제바이나 뇽난도 양 깎아라 용고 뇽난데 가나 양 잠발 대제 대제 뇽도 강제 대제들이 고 장가랑을 상관없는 제바이나 어디니 바이나 양 잠발 갖고 되지 야
So they just nupto na the job.
Dela kadina de jeni de tanga de jeni kala de nyopto chaya de liu o de kala ya bu pa de anji de yabi
So it's also that from his own experience, from experience, he can say that it's as you're doing this and you're doing this counting and you're doing this counting, say you get a little bored or something, and you can then just move on to the next one and do the next one.
So 제쇼데 소소고 셈데 디나니장 가기 디고 데즈 템보단 소소고 셈데 다고 야고 잡투나 데 잔도고 돈이 잔도세나 주고나 야요.
So the main thing, the most important here in the meditation is that if you're able to really start to take control of your mind and be careful, watch your mind. Really, that's really the main point of what we're doing here.
지금 지기때 되니 지기때 가서
Oh, the chiwa, okay, yeah, the shiteto shine shitang dewa yorevesh.
that's a
Yes, of course, very much. That's it. Of course,
전에
it's,
전에 저걸 제가는 홍가 타는 약쇼지다 리라쇼지 밴데어 치고
So there's a very strong connection. This meditation on the breath is one of the best and one of the easiest ways to really improve your shine. Shine would be calm abiding.
Right. So the goal is to increase your concentration, like the power of concentration.
You know the gaps of the mikyu the shine yorgejo. The mikyu the so. No, Mikyu,
Oh,
the
Mikyu, that's when-
Karitopia gi.
시럽 산나 교육 롱임 알이야 아야 뭐야 뭐이다 전에 거 봐도 기초다 그 배는 조사도 남도 못 기위치더라 이나 들이 검토는 전에 따라서 그래 전에 공개 따라서 좀 돈이 전에 또 이나 안 거야 남도 가는 좀 기위치
So yes, of course, if you do this, you have this potential of achieving calm abiding. But what we're talking about is just bringing down these conceptual thoughts and really doing that for general mental wellness.
돈다 딱이 ngani nija dinalo la so sem gna sa namdo res namdo de jizu nyongwa ti so ke sem gna sa nyongri to res ini yin so za ni taki zu de ga de ru jong go ya de namdo da man da so so sem de la ma ki wa so so sem de lo cha ya sem lo cha ba ina so so lu bo de ya an ji lo cha ya de ni bo ji de chen de ne ko go ba da bi go ba mo bo yo de zu de de.
So in this context, right, what we were talking about is the illnesses of the mind, and the cause of the illnesses of the mind are these afflictive discursive thoughts. And this meditation on breath is a really powerful way to bring these afflictive discursive thoughts down to namdok. And if you do that, of course, if you reduce the amount of mental illness, the illness of mind that you have, you also whatever physical illnesses will be helped as well.
야 가마 가시리 냠도 저는 맞아 삼이 냠도 딱이 genso 시도 방언진 집 가마 가시리나 고민이다.
So we're going to do, just for a few minutes here, we're going to do this meditation on the breath. Okay, so they're not going to talk, we're just going to do these meditations individually.
나서
Okay.
지가
Good. Questions? Anybody have questions?
Something kind of a simple question, but I'm really curious what their perspective of why the breath helps the mind so much.
That's a great question. Yeah. The cognitivo carecina, the caricini caricini gondi simpingere. Vediamo che pepeto c'è magari, che
다 너서 거치는 데서 너서 지나는 삼로도 다 론데 냠데 기게 버르는데 아니 론데 그 같이 가게 요나 아니 삼로도 디나지 템보 차트레즈 도서는 된지 론 교고나 무시가 나토 제레즈야 지금 그 김센로 시험도 다 수도 론 어즈보 론컵 냠조이게라 론컵 야포니나 셈
So the simplest way to explain this is that when the breath and mind are connected. And so that if you focus on your breath and you make your breath regular, then that will regulate your mind essentially. Your mind will follow the breath, and then what your breath is doing, your mind does. And so the simplest way to understand that is there's a very close connection between the breath and the mind.
Natsu was same day, 2 day, Namton Damato, the Kavala Shundu Rezin, Yana, Zup, Yana Dra, Ti, Ro, Recha. Doyo Nazi, do Matzola Dopa was do. Matzola Dopa Walla Carrezi, Tini Doyo Nalaya, Matzope, Chapa, Chiboyo, Natsu Dopa was a boy. Or then Sonsani, Matzo Tasula Chatica Kato, Yip Draman, Chavi Chapaki do. 제가 루트다 롱 제가들 코 입당 카도다 딘디 강야 메인 손자니 코 무바진이 진이 곰 딘디 제가온디가 콜라야 지 차당다 딘디 기비 시 차위요 말레스 딘 손자 코 랑신 코 딘디가 입당 카도 메인 손자니 콜라 무디 딘디 곰디가 랑신 그 셈데 데지 와 슈도야 딘디를 펜도 친구.
So we can also say that there's these sort of five ways or five ways of generating desire. There's 5 channels of generating desire. We have, what do we have? We have sound, taste, touch, sight, tactile sensations. We have these different ways of generating desire. So example, form, for example, we have like color and shape, and we can become very attached to different colors and shapes. But breath doesn't have any of these. Breath doesn't have color, it doesn't have shape. And so when you're focusing on your breath, you really won't develop this attachment and this desire if you're focusing on your breath, because you're not engaging with either of these 5 channels of desire, sources of desire or attachment.
That's all. Yes or no? Yeah. Question,
Please, any questions? Any kind of question, general questions about the topic?
I think I didn't really understand the third placement. If the fourth one is analytical, like is it conceptual? Do we have to think during that meditation?
The third one or the fourth one?
The fourth one, like the third one, I like if they can go through the third one again.
I see. Oh, so you have
And about the
essentially
fourth
2
one,
questions.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, about the fourth one, if it is conceptual, and we have to think about it.
The children did the kongi the sumbate hakomason.
아니야.
The kotomson. Yang the shipate kongi the shipate the gom the jegom rang rere.
조금이에요.
Jogom the jegom the shipate the semotangi semotangi to the jegom.
제단데 지금 갖고 조금으로 단단 조금으로
The shipate.
지바탄 조금 대리 듣고 곰기아비 까블 삼로트 니찬지 канал 코라지암니젠 타그림본 잠잘 마토나 키곰 차카요서 코라티 짱바 마토 케스 카니소 무바니섬 지글 코라지암데나 양 조금 차카요서 곰니 파르테 테니테 산티테 디 코라지아니 살로 탄데나 타란 조금 차코리 테탄 살로 모보탄이오라 Kaki kumse di kim sandra mera kawaina salvo tani jungo ore.
Chiwa di mang chiwa di shipa teki nangla di semo tangere. Di lungi kula semo tangere. Di uk di kinagi sem deche ki mares.
Jabate terwa. Ut sachime lomjong ajetan. Terroreja je yekmo chomjo chiri san tel samlo jatra. Sonsa jogum chakayor. Chipatesi yo samgui chegumdra guayon. Ko mupangi chanre samupangi chanze na hawa. Samu sansa te tenki sar. Tin jonge tsopi don pino samu tandi na mado teli gachen ro me sonsa jogum chako. Chegumze at pena na zona sanro na tati ki ka re tel kar chegum na endra samu tandi chegumdra.
So we got a little. I use technical terms for sort of analytical meditation and placement meditation. We got a little sidetracked in that question, but essentially the answer is that your second question. The answer is the fourth one is you're thinking about the nature of the mind. It would not technically be analytical meditation in the technical sense because you're not thinking about all of the different sort of aspects and causes and conditions and things of the breath, right? I'm sorry, I said mind, of the breath. But you are conceptually thinking about the nature of the breath in the fourth one.
This not banal. Ta gombaji achiore, ta gomondi penen jichen de ta chaksum nyam de gomu. Amne sandi panas lasum chosoni. Ha Mambo shu nyam de goming gore ta telatini jane jogore ma to jane jotolo ka me son to chun jogom chakayor ko pa ni chen chikana la ko ni ta pa tembo tingola sa lo ta de so mu pa mambo chile sa lo ta zanio ko chako tin
It's similar to when we talk about deity meditation, where we're visualizing a deity, and the deity has these different aspects, and it's not analytical meditation, even though the deity is appearing in it's very complicated and ornate fashion.
네, 다가랑 단계는 소만나시고 노시마치 대사들 공부를 최대 공부를 논들 공부를 대점 삼로 동화점을 개공자 차고 다 살들 공부 힘비 김세 남도 공부다 뒤니그 돈이 삼로 동화 버리나 고개 공자 차고 단데 고사 공부 들고 가자 공부 논제 공부 뒤니 고제게 공부 뒤니 지레 대점 지금 로 뭔가 시작도 대자마도 대 임비 김선 남도 뭐 상관도 없는 어디니 소자니 건좀 조금이네 대교요 조금 라야고 삼로 균이 당한 매번 되니 말해
오늘 콩 제공 송마송아 내가 콩망 체와디 디 셈로 땅 디갑수디 시바기 갑수디 셈로 땅기 디 토픽이 셈로 땅기 So he's further explaining that yes, you are thinking about this very specifically about this nature of the breath in terms of being these different the earth, fire, water, these different subtle particles that we talked about. But you're not thinking about all of the causes and conditions, all of the different aspects and the ways that you would get about it in what would be technically an analytical meditation, where you're coming at it from all of these different ways.
조금 더 개검자데 개기를 버리는 주도진이
He's saying I added this in and confused us. Oh, you didn't the Sumba, he didn't the Sumba take the younger.
somebody tere ta nga so zupo ronde zupo na leon kable zupo la pean to ko yore la no ya ki yore se ndi shen du ta te so me jong no le ya te yore se to pa ser pa so nga so londe me na zupo so tap sa ni yo mare sta londe ze ti ta zo londe mare nga so londe men yena ya nga so zupo chola ta ya ge ta zupo nya gun ro ya ge yona mena chi yang so long che yore se Monta zupo na la nga tsula no pa che yore peya to ko yore mar uktsi peya to ko yore no yang che yore si ne sam zupo lo tro yang le sam chamo yang zo yore sam lo ti na le tan monta la mu monta ki ti che yore sam.
So focusing on your breath, why you're having the breath as the objects of meditation, you're thinking, is this breath helping me? Is this wind technically helping me? Is this wind element, this breath hurting me? Is it making me hot? Is it making me warm? Is it going to waste perhaps in different parts of my body? Just contemplating that while focusing on the breath.
So it's also kind of conceptual. You use concepts also during that meditation.
Yeah. So these tope, the simultaneous,
No, really, tani che yore samba na muki longo musik no bandal che son tani jip cha da so ha ko ma ro tani ji ki cha ni tani chi sa ma pa.
Yeah, so you'll be focusing on your mind, but you are having conceptual thoughts.
How would you know if the breath is like hurting you or if it's
I asked him the same question. He knows, yeah. Yeah, well, I can't speak for him. I'll ask him. The uk lung de kenegi simla nuna kanju sakogi is the simgi the lung kanju sim the supo nugi is the konversi kapsu the
Mare. Kirtan ye no ku yo sare tangi nga so ta no ku yo ha ko yo ma ro ki cha ni no yo sa ina nga so gom ya bi kap se ko samlo tni chi tan ni de ya to ma to lon la mu ni tni chi nga so su na lon de le on di no pa ya chi ri ke ya to pa ri to bo ya chi ri ya ki sa ni samlo ta ya su te ri do ma to ta ko no sa den ri se tni chi cha nga so ha ko ma ri te samlo ta ma su gom la ta
So we can't actually know, oh, it's hurting, some part of my body or not, or helping me. We don't know that. The point, the meditation really is just about why you're focusing on the breath, to be sort of contemplating that, oh, the breath is helping me, the breath is harming me, the breath is making me warm, the breath is making me cold, and sort of having these ideas about the breath as you're focusing on the breath.
When I was younger, 가르쳐 냠냠고 돈이 초르트베지 가리고 그래서기 왜나 대소다 라고 이네 그래서 콩로식 침보라 되거나 동바도 정말 아마고 차도도 대 가르치는 배 콩로도 롱식 침보 콩로도 롱이 냠냠 요소서 콩로식 침보서 어디가 디가 현자가 롱스는 되게 식잡네 되니 배 차도 조식 침보 동발 때문에 되거든 대 힘을 좀 차도도 제가 또 정말 주고대 야 공부 뭐하고 차도에도 너 니보 차도에도 저 참아 가래 저 롱뚝기
So for So a very rough example here is we can think about with anger. If we get really angry, what happens? Our face gets red, our face gets warm, right? And so why does that happen? That's because of this lung, the wind, right? The wind and the anger, this wind, our breath and the anger are very closely connected. And so when you get very angry, the wind is also rising, and it's creating this heat and this redness in your body. And so this is just sort of a rough idea of understanding the connection between the two.
다나 지금 철로가 맞아 코리거로 랑싱거로도 롱 저보잖아 저 저때나 너 그래 아니 롱배 신나다 들려나 지금 롱데 맞춰서 보다 팽그레스 롱 저보 되거든
Topa. Okay.
롱 저보 맨날 딜리도 저 가로데나 저때나 너 그래 철로가 롱라야 저보다 야가 되는 것도 보다 초반하지 나노 삼로 다 냠도 남도 다 냠도 옆에 롱데 롱 저보 근데 양 삼로 야가 다 냠도 옆에 롱데 가다가 유심니까라 펜도 옆에 롱 되게 잘이야 삼로 다 요.
So one way to think about this is, for example, if we think about an external wind, a normal wind in the world, and we can think about, for example, if a wind that is dirty, say, for example, from Delhi comes up, right? That wind hurts you. It's not great, right? If the wind, if you get air, if you get wind coming from the mountains, from the forest, that helps you. And so, in the same way, if we have this in our body, we have this wind element conjoined with all of these negative, afflictive, discursive thoughts. That's like this sort of polluted wind that's going to harm our body. If we have a wind that is not afflicted by these, is not connected with these negative, these afflictive, discursive thoughts, then there's a clean wind, and it's going to help our body.
Short question is anger always bad? And I'll explain why.
Okay.
I mean, I'm interested in the extremes of this.
Yeah.
So for instance, in medicine, if the patient is doing something bad, the doctor will scold them to stop doing that. And that's well-meaning, even though you're telling them to do something. But then there comes a point when you cross the line, and you actually make them not trust you anymore and not feel comfortable sharing their problem because they're worried that you're going to judge them. The same example is like, this dharma was put on the ground. Well-meaning people say like, don't put it on the ground, but when when does it cross the line of being self-righteous to the point that it prevents people from actually accepting that, like, oh, this is a learning here. So how do you balance that?
So kongi karisina di shetang kongcho takbar kya di dukcha rite yang na di kongi pe ni shaksong di Tangbo kongi minba neyok samsam di neba tela samsam sheshe dang gores. Di yang na di samsam sheshe dang sang di nepe di minbe la di yecheche shorgires la kires. Di gange yongires. Yang na di kongi pe nipa di samsam natso di hamakona di chu di shala shakires. Mishin di kong la di sheshe dang gires. The kadu, the control doksan, the control chimpo, the dukcha chakis.
제가 전에 control 데라 타직 도노비 한신당 아니 그 느껴 chama to de la yawi cha yo ma ya ko yi cha yo ma
Ya ko yi cha.
ko ta chi la no bi rang xin re
The Nubis
no bi rang xin ma to pen bi rang xin yo ma
So generally speaking, when we talk about anger, and this isn't the Buddhist definition, right? That it is a mind that wants to hurt, right? There's not a mind of anger is not a mind that seeks to benefit others. So it's always a mind that's actually seeking to hurt people.
yi ma yi na ma so gu bi wang ki ka le ya pe na pa ma yi na bu le ya ka le ya kong chu pa ma gu ba de jin se gu ba pen to la so ba do gu ba o de ni ga sam lo ke ni na ya ka le ya gen la ge tu le ya ye ze shi dang gu ya dang pa mi ge bu la shi dang gu ya ni yong gu yo de so yi ma yi na za wi ge ko 사와 가르칠 때 내용을 맞죠 양도 이만추나는 이 거론도 뒤기 거론도 니고 이 거론도 세와 요소산이 뭐니 이 거론도 세와 요나 카디들이야 제당가 남바도 디니 때마이나 양 콜이야 펜도야 어디니 양 용요
뒷근홍이야 뭐 영상들이.
이 거론 뒤기 거론 니
So it often arises, right, that a teacher has to scold a student or a parent has to scold a child. Right, and this really depends on the motivation. What is the motivation of this parent or this teacher? The motivation is a good motivation. It's that there's good and bad motivations, and the motivation here is to help the child, right?
배나 저 밤이 소소는 조금 나와. 나는 소소 교육신도 소소라 가져나야 들리는 거. 아주 샘리에 빼 식침보는 음도 어땡알아 펜도 치에데 디지고레 니레가 논치치니 어디가라 시시 당겨요레 삼번 데 소소가 당len 제샤바이나 이 시시 그 소소라 노고만 이바이나 파셔 아 베디자리 공알라 시시 당기드니 소소 몰레 제당 노 송바이나 콜라노
So 안녕 하고선 디 파마데 디 근홍 두짝이나 디 느심 연결해 디 근홍 야포 디 페냐기 근홍이나 디 부크데서 느기 말이지.
말에 그 년케디
닌킨.
년케 되게 삼로 당당 마시니 그나 아졸라 시시 밤하고 시시 당겨요레 겐라가 시시 당겨요와 시시나는 다 통도 나바지네 시시 당겨요 이나 그 야로 니지 근홍이 송산이 아졸라 디 셈레 옆에 식침보 녹음이도 아시 삼로당 야 삼로당다 직 뭐게 시시 당사디가 삼로당다는 노 송바이나 얘네 거다 너 필요한 신차로
디 스모당사 디
삼로당다 가 부이나
결이나 공기 근홍 거기래.
디 그런 거
파마가 담보체 손산나
밤에 갈라페 비자체
펜도 체트레 산 펜도
So we can just think about that if you think about like the child's perspective, if the father, if the for example the father or the mother is scolding them, and then there's a good motivation, then the child doesn't receive it as harm. Whereas if the father and the mother are doing this from love, then the child won't receive it necessarily as harm. But if they're doing it from bad motivation, then it could become harmful.
yes or no
Andrew,
Yes.
Andrew,
Yes.
Udi,
ale
you can have the.
I think Anila wants to say something. Hold on. You're very quiet. Just a second. Let me see if I can figure out why.
ale hello, how are you?
I'm fine, Geshe.
I can repeat what you're saying. It's not very loud.
Okay, and so actually it's just to clarify that actually the motivations that Gisela said here. And so there are two kinds of motivations, the direct and indirect motivation, right? The indirect motivation is the motivation that comes just behind the thoughts, like the proper basic motivation that is out of love and wishing to protect and to benefit the person, right? Like the student, the patient, and so forth. Even though the first motivation, the direct motivation, is sort of your motivations with anger. So you have to show an angry face, or even sometimes you become angry, and then you become angry, and then you show an angry face. But it's out of your basic motivation that is to benefit. So there are two kinds of motivation: the basic foundation motivation, which is good, Then even with a good motivation, you're allowed, it happens to show bad face and so forth. Because Ellie's question was like how to, where's the line, the limit, right? Between really like scolding and not harming the patient or losing the confidence, the trust that
The
the
layers of
patient has.
motivation, essentially.
Yes, and then how to scold, because sometimes the doctors, they have to be hard, right? But how to not overpass that limit with the trust, not losing trust from the patients. And so that's the root question as far as I understood. Okay. And then another thing also for the geishas, I think is good also to clarify even more like what is the connection between all the mind issues, like why to meditate or all the mind issues with the proper diseases, because since they are doctors, so they are all here listening and thinking how to treat, how to benefit the patients. And so if the patient is with cancer and so forth, like there's no way to, okay, let's sit together, meditate and so forth. Sometimes it's not that practical. And so how to really connect why they're just saying about mental and so forth, since the disease can be a big disease and so forth. And so if they can also explore a little bit more this connection between mind and the physical diseases. Okay.
Okay. So Anila provided a clarification that what Geshe-la was saying in this last example was really that there's sort of layers of motivation. So if your root motivation is out of love and compassion, you may actually get angry, right? And you may show anger, and that's okay, right? That there is that is there as long as you have this basis of love and compassion beneath it. And the second thing was a suggestion for the Geshe. Kongi kinangso di samchar di HR kinangso di membetetsowa di simtang di natsa di dewa di doksun mangwa che tukires kangin sinar kongso di minkang jona di sungju di kongso di dap devo kaptuk kanjes di lakun che tukires di get kongso.
다다게 댕 치소 댕문이래 가르제 당보 될라 네바 당보 레온데 가나 네바가 샘컴도 봐 로로 찍고야 돼 하진가 내가 친구차 빼나게 너무 저리지 야때 또 당보 줘
So when you have someone that's sick, really one of the most important things, one of the greatest things that you can do is help them sort of relax their mind, have some ease in their mind.
빼나 맘바 땀지 단다 메지가 멤바 땀지
Maybe damjin.
맘바 땀지 살라 뭐뭐 벤디야 비니 네코용이가 아니 아서 원이야 몽보용이 잘 묻힌 제가 디나나 디니 딱서 멤바 땀지라 그서 매 동기요 그 땡고디 아니 멤바 땀지 아 저런 저 디니 솔로 심발로 지지지 디질 에 랍자페 님보 랍자 콩 랍자 저런 심발로 저 아니 볼라디 갈라 맨데다 팽기가 맨나 하고 마송스 암치라가 랍자데 직펜소 그래서 제자 암치도 배 내발라 랍자 상부 심발로 저야가 갈로 가조 나톤도 봐줘 내바들라랑 지금 펜도야지 제가 디카를 생각도 줘
나 예시 간저 저노 디디나 신상.
저랑 무슨 냐미고도
There's a very famous doctor here, Dr. Tamjin, who's the doctor. One of the doctors for His Holiness, and there is an example of someone who went to have the 수 공라 딩카 템바인 kirken.
본이야 용요 볼라지
Pola.
보봐 아주 바이니야 사른조 다 하고
네, 산조.
바이니야 여러분 제가 용되니 우리 몸보 거살라 멤버 돈사도 어디나니 볼라지
the 게로 무지 디 공딩냠 디 게주세 버레.
여러분 노
그러니까
멤버 땀데 딘디 볼라데 이한디 자갈라 여러분 제가 용니지 그래서
오케이.
이바이나 고 멤버 땀데 살라 멤버 돈사도레스 하고서
No, so we had a new arrival. When Tibetans would arrive from Tibet, they would have an audience with His Holiness. So they just arrived from Tibet and they've come here, and he's somebody who's come to Dharamsala for an audience with His Holiness, but he was sick and he went to go see this doctor, Dr. Tamjin. He went and talked to Dr. Tamjin, and somebody asked him, oh, well, did the doctor help you? Did the medicine help you? And Dr. Tamjin, when he saw this man, the way he talked was like, oh, just relax, be calm, really just be at peace. And it did sort of help him calm down. And the person who afterwards said, well, I don't know if the medicine helped or not, but the doctor's advice, like the way that the doctor spoke to me, was incredibly helpful. So it's something for you guys to think about, that how important that is, really, how helpful it can be as a doctor.
Let's go.
In regards to the aggregates, could you speak about the movement from feeling to discrimination, and in particular how this examination could be of enormous benefit for those experiencing severe physical suffering, such as patients in the hospital?
So like meditating on the aggregates and thinking about feeling and discrimination?
Yeah, like basically, the role of Vedana or feeling in the perception of pain.
Okay. But the exact question here is that, so if you're meditating on the five aggregates of feelings and discrimination, how could you use that meditation for people that are in great suffering? Like, what could you tell them? Sort of, how could you instruct them maybe to think about this to help them? So kongichiwa kareisena di nacho di pungbonga di gombe gapla di michiki pecher di nepate di dugna be shukchumpo yores. Di pungbonga gombe gapla di tsorwa tang duche miksegi gomna kanjes di nepate dugna be shukchumpo yube di nepate di gom di tsorwa tang duche di gom kanjes kongla pengiris.
Never tell us.
Never tell. They took no pay to jump with us. In the sort of
Never tell. Do Nasa Chimochi.
not to something they not.
Mishabachiga, Kolamubi.
Kola the pinto cheagi chedu or the Toratang to check gongi took me countries the simple che to kiris.
That so Kati Diliginazo. 가서 보면 다 뒤나니 눈물을 딱 간디지 보면 가디들 파쇼는 유런도 해야 되다 펜스야 되다 가고 시다리죠. 나 이번에 나로는 냠뇨치 시래 냠뇨치 네 디가 곰다 겸에 곰겸에 네 메신비오 말에 이번에 나가 버질라 고모마 로비칼라 아마 배 코즈페 네번 자다다 주메게 나사 캔서 캔서가 나사 배 네버 배 몽모두 디나라 아마테 비행고집에 그 남지 곧까지 켜니 시그 말이사 그런 거 보모니도 용게 용게 그런 거 보모니 남지 곧 켜니 까지 시그 말이사 가비는 좀 많이 뭐 야들이 켜니 시그 말이사 네 근데 맞춰 보기는 저 아마도 가르에서 되게 딱고 개스럽게 내발에 되는 데가는 샘리에 빼 가서 초바식 치모 요구도 다 저서 닌지 상기pe 초바 요구 아니 나 거기도 거절을 봐 내내 냠도 탐니 거절을 탐 거절을 라바다 거절을 까지식 아마도 빼 냠나니 다 가서 가가를 콤페 모두 이내 가서 까지시 가서 해서 탑 참보지 어디니 전에 아마도 빼 상모도 오시고 근데 가라 되네 이 부모님들랑 cancer. Didn't I'm a lamb namji chuni. You says a dilly on the Ganamaso young collar namja. No go chorwa that dilly, Cheloka namjir tony collar, never lila chambuchina, Kaja Shedanda, Liga namjir tony, Page and Navanzarala, Chambuchina, depend on chair do something.
So I think maybe it would be quite. I think it would be kind of hard actually to apply this meditation to someone who is in this deep pain, right? That I think it would be very difficult to do. However, we can talk about, for example, there was an example of this woman who was in a cancer ward. There were lots of many very sick people, and she had cancer, and she had these two kids. And normally she was just very sad. She was sort of unresponsive, and they went in and basically just through hugging her, holding her hands, talking to her, being with her, being kind to her, physical contact, hugging her, being close to her. That day, then she was very happy. She was very alive. She was able, her mind was able to relax and to have some sort of wellness just through this basic human touch and contact. Kind of.
근데 소상가서 갑도
Yes,
제당
the
탑단 새로운 냠도 있다.
네.
답시 종질.
네.
답시 종질 세고 소상야 제자 깎아야 지금 내발에 땅아주 공장이 팽그레지 내반 자다 지살아인도니 내가 공장이 되되나 콜 팽빙이가 메여서 요 탑런 거 돈. 제당 거 돈이 야 콜라 가래 팽기도. 가자가 남길 그 돈. 근데 제당도 그
So it's really important when we talk about what we talk about is method and wisdom, right? So method in this case is sort of what we actually do, and wisdom is sort of knowing things. And so it's not necessarily just going and meditating, but really thinking about what will be of benefit to that person, and sort of using both your actions, method we call it, and your wisdom, and sort of bringing them together to do what is of most benefit to the person.
yes, I think Andrew.
Yes.
I think Ishala also. Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Just a second.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, but just wait till they're pouring tea. So let's wait. Yes, I'm going to know something. Okay, Anna, go ahead.
Yes. When Yes, and so the most
I can't hear
important
you now. No, I know,
message that Geshe-la wants to.
What are you saying?
Can you hear now?
Yes.
It's better? Okay.
Yes.
And so what Geshe-la, the main message here is that they as doctors, so one of the most important, something that really gives the difference to the patients and in the process of healing and the cure and so forth, is not only their knowledge, their technical knowledge, like the knowledge of which kind of treatment or which kind of medicine to give, not only that, but also, and very important, is the way of treating them, the way of addressing the message, the way of talking to them, and so forth. For example, when he was in Brazil 7 years ago, the first time. So when he was to Brazil, we went to the terminal patients hospital. And in that moment, there was a very old lady together with her two daughters that they are helping the mother. And for a long time, she didn't even open the eyes, talk, and so forth. But because Geshe-la was hugging her and being so kind to her, talking to her, and try to love and so forth, just by his own loving and caring action, she suddenly opened the eyes and started talking and even stood up in the bed. And then the two kids were just surprised, like, wow, like really having a caring attitudes really can change the things. And this is connected with the first thing that Geshe-la spoke today in his presentation, the end of his presentation, that one very important thing as doctor, an attitude of doctor is also really understand work as doctor in order to benefit the patients, understand they also want to be happy and don't want to suffer, and not to become business, like just knowing, not having the knowledge, but without generally caring for the patients. And so is very important, to not only knowing technically, but really addressing with the correct mode, correct attitude towards the patients. This is his main message.
Okay. So this was actually, that story was actually Geshe-la, when Geshe-la and Anila went to Brazil. they went to a cancer ward, and it was actually Geshe-la who was the person who hugged and touched and talked to the cancer patient. The cancer patient sort of became responsive and revived and felt better. And one of the things she reiterated is that Geshe-la's the main point here is that for the doctors is that it's not just about your knowledge; it's also about how you act with the patients, what you do, the way that you interact with them. That's really important. Yes.
이니 송산이 다도다 멤버들 지선 그 세심 첨보인 바 뒤쪽 아주 네바디 통원이 야고 네바디 그 지금 가자 통 대보지다 라바게 되지 네발에 되지 창용이 가래 아주 라바게 창용이 가래 그걸 서로 만들어 돼야 이니 텐데 셈그 니바고 토니 텐데 요인사
든든해서.
그 가르는 멤버들라 세심 첨보
아, 그래.
그 아주 네바 니데 이제 바이나 통디 가래야 소소 셈나 데지 초나 기고래야 아주 멤버들 콜라들이 라반 창용이 가라 아니 배 소 셈래야 데기요 같이 와도 야 나도 못
So, for example, with doctors, when you're treating people, if you see them, maybe the patient sees the doctor and they're happy. But if you can just something as simple as like putting your hand on the patient, right? Actually just physically touching their hand, that can really help them. Really help.
Pena tangaron ko thonserida. Nala nyamnyo kara yore eside. Ni gela chitini pe yasbo chega pe tholando ni. Gjochoni jame batini chan. Maso khadi hobli mengana. Chido dikan. Ane maso pe chizo nisun na tibuki guni. Kap chila te memba leso, memba chewa. Yang ko di lakpa de. De kutunga abana de chu. Ane yang Karan tako namjer teta nebala namjer teta. Karan ches ane geng laba dini jinizm ne pena jinizm. In laba dam ane karan ches ane ta shira lo kazore. Ane gela dikala gomlo dunju dini. Da parche da shira che ayo mare. De membati ko nebala tsese ko no chimbo indikala ta parche shia dizo levare da shira che ayo mendo. Pena neba tsanda mazi penga so memba che tanda semle pe moni pe makiba
de gengi sen.
Pasho memba che tanda tikto. Dini che son baina. Memba dini che baina pe neba da neyo sami semba pe
So, for example, his teacher down in South India, in Drebung, who has it sounded like he has sort of some problems with his arm, and they took him to the hospital in Hubli, which is the nearest largest town. And the hospital in Hubli, the doctor showed up, and they remember they couldn't lapa changi
changi lakpa le dini zum shosi gengal cha de na ko de jini kangi lakpa le sa dom zite gen dame yom
Oh, the Kirgin Kirang Magi Lakpa, the
member dini jini kerangi lakpa dam a genga dam tu mare yes lo kazore
so that the doctor came up and asked him to squeeze his hand, testing his strength, and of course he wasn't able to do it. And suddenly the doctor just sort of dismissed him and said, "Oh, how many years does he have? He's 70 years old. Oh, he's going to die anyway. It's time for him to die." And so this is an example, of course, everybody's emotions were terrible after that. Everybody's mind was very disappointed and bad. So this is an example of what not to do.
Kolaya sesim chi yobache diga thoni kawkala neba member kala nyema ni teni cheba ina shabala tezi Dezi takpo che ada dini da kawkala yungure muni azo pama ina pu kama ina dezi gege ina loti neba ina kaza neba ina neba tole yang dezi kawkala dan chege yungure ima ina So
being a doctor, of course, it is very difficult sometimes. It is very difficult to be a doctor. But really, if you can really try very hard to just keep this good motivation of love and kindness inside, really, that's really, really important, because it is hard sometimes to be a doctor. But the main thing, if you can just keep this motivation of love and compassion.
That's all.
I'd like to add, look at the patient, not the textbook. Because I'm a nurse and I see a lot of this.
Oh, right, timber. Ko nebala tazi to gonna nebala tapshi wundri. Dere wundri shungana na kan yobatiya. De jaja tani pento yomara. Mushi laling toni nebala ya kaleji ko neba chungu. Kaleji ko dagi ngazu laima tapshi. Tapshi niga pecho tango. Tap janja pecho tanaya pengyo. Shero janja pecho tang pengo. Tapshi niga toni nebala ta.
Yes, he agrees. It's
Very
very,
good.
it's very important, right? You have to connect with the person, and it's just an example of what we would think of as method and wisdom. And you have to really, both with your actions and both with your wisdom. If you just have wisdom, it's not helpful for the patient. If you're just doing things without wisdom, it's not helpful for the patient. You have to bring them together. And this is an example of that. That's very important.
Tuchena, abarji tiyo me namazo. Ishane digde.
If no one else has questions, we'll go ahead and stop.
다 저런 저 상계 멜라는 데가 요소 나서 멜라가 소치도 되니 담아다가 저 참아 냠도 다 저런 저 무슨 그 축해 레니 메바이나 인치 미치 저런 저 주다 고절라서 왔다 되니 제고 말이디 임바이나 맞소 그 레가가 멤버자도 또는 맞소 밀이야 강이 치셔도 나야 게야 시야 아마 좀미 술에 있는데 강의 제쇼 그나니 나착 소위가 멤버자데 당원이 같은 친구 대인 송자 저런서 가르서 네 멤버 나름 그 장야 되게 내가 뭐 질라 펜토 버쇼 삼로다나 지금
So it's really wonderful being a doctor. Really, for us, the biggest causes of suffering are illness, death, aging, and being a doctor, you do this incredible work to help people healing. So it's just really wonderful that what you're doing, and just try to help people as much as possible through this. And it doesn't matter if you're Buddhist or not, whatever. You're really wonderfully you're doing this thing to help people, to help heal the biggest suffering that we have in our lives.
Also, 개결라야 되지치. 저런 소토는 제모치네 배발라. 되지치. Thank you.
Thank you to everybody for paying attention.
맞아, 단단히 신대가 다 기신하고 주고 아니 아까가다가 저 다토니 완전히 저 지워지는데 안 들어오면 쓸때 고요 봐이나 저는 저 맞을라 라디오 토니 제방이 버리 제방이나 저 카운터 주도 그 토니 지금 저 진짜도 고 시쇼 스키는 저 벤도 요나 벤도 메나
So if you would like to do like questions and answers or classes over the internet, of course, if they would love to do that. We can connect with you know, WhatsApp. Of course, if there's benefit, great. If there's no benefit, then great. We'll do it.
가르쳐. 생활 아니 자
If anybody would like tea, water,
follow the
snacks, you're welcome to just relax, hang out.
Very good, Andrew. Very good. Very good.
You're very, I'm sorry. It's very, very soft for Sabisa. What are you thinking?
Just stop the recording. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Stop recording.
Yeah.
Connected to a speaker.